Welcome back to the Arizona Daily Mix. We are countdown. We are we're 1 week away, Dr. Rizik, to the next heart procedure that we're going to be doing here on AZTV7.
We're excited.
I'm excited. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, you've been explaining this to us and we've been talking. I'm going to take us back really quick to our first procedure, live procedure we did, and talk about really quick what that operation was about.
The first procedure we did was to repair a mitral valve. This was a patient, if you recall, that had a leaky mitral valve, and so we passed a long tube up from the leg up to the heart, and we were able to place a device on that mitral valve to repair it, to keep it from leaking. And as you remember, when we saw the patient the very next week here in the studio, he was all better. He was dramatically improved. So we were repairing a mitral valve. Now we're talking about opening blocked arteries, a different part of the plumbing of the heart.
Right, and we also want people to understand that this is a kind of like procedure that's been brought recently. And I mean, I want to say recently, but when did this start happening where you didn't have to crack open the chest anymore and start doing it this way?
You know, if you were looking at the number of bypass procedures in the 70s and 80s, far and away we were doing way more bypass procedures than we were catheter-based procedures. But in the 90s, there began to become a shift where bypass was becoming less frequent and catheter-based procedures, balloon angioplasty, stent implantation in the coronary arteries was becoming more frequent. Now we do far more coronary stent procedures than we do bypass procedures.
Yeah. Okay. So before we came on, you explained to me what I'm going to be seeing here, and now we're going to explain to the public, because last time we saw this go through the groin area.
Correct.
Now you're telling me that you don't have to do that now, the way these procedures are able to change a little bit, and this time we're going to go through the wrists, kind of, or the...
90% of the catheter-based procedures we do today, we don't go through the leg anymore. We go through the wrist. If you look back 20 years, almost invariably it was done through the groin, by going in what we call the femoral artery in the groin. But technology has changed. Things have been miniaturized. And so now 90% of everything we do in terms of stenting procedures, we go in through an artery in the wrist, we pass a long tube up to the heart, and by going through the wrist, about half the time these patients can go home the same day. Now think about the evolution. When we first started implanting stents in 1994, these patients would stay at the hospital for 3 or 4 days. Now they stay for about 3 or 4 hours before you send them home.
Wow, that is so amazing. And it's kind of interesting, you know, when we talk about, you know, someone having a heart attack, they're always grabbing their arm. Is that because everything is connected right there?
Yeah, everything is connected, but that's more nerve connections. You may feel pain radiating down the arm, especially in men. That's mostly because of nerve connections, not the arterial connections.
So, wow, it's so incredible. I want to switch gears really quick, and we're going to talk prevention before we talk a little bit more.
Always an important thing.
Because we want to talk really about women preventing and women having heart disease and stuff, because we always know about the men. We always talk about the men, but last time you and I, we talked about heart conditions for women. We were talking about just recently, you know, in the pretty much 90s, 2000, they really started to separate men's symptoms from women's symptoms, which is so important.
It's very important. If you look at the procedures that we do, if you're looking at 40-year-olds, far and away there's more men than women. When you do procedures in 70-year-olds, it's about 50-50. So there's a catch-up phenomenon such that at younger ages, men have their heart attack 10 years earlier than women. Average age of a man's about 50 to 60, for a woman it's 60 to 70. And the symptoms are very different. We've talked about this many times, that some of the classic symptoms we talk about, this pressure or tightness in the chest, may be more applicable to men. Women may be more shortness of breath, back pain, neck pain, fatigue, arm pain. The symptoms can be very different. But prevention, I am a big believer that prevention should be the same for men and women. The big things that we talk about: exercising regularly, eating right, don't smoke. You know, when if you look at heart disease in women 40 or 50 years ago, women didn't smoke as much as they did in the 80s and 90s. And that was responsible for a lot of the increase in coronary disease in women. You know, you had the woman with the Virginia Slims, very appealing to smoke for some reason. And so that allowed for some of that catch-up phenomenon that we see, that women have developed coronary disease at higher rates than they did before they were smoking.
Well, I'm ready to go back in. I know the patient.
We're ready to have you.
The patient is ready for me to come back in, and I think this one's going to be a very interesting one, because I think this is more where we're going to understand about the stents, compared to the balloons, compared to the bypass surgery, because this is what we always hear about, is someone getting a stent done to open up those arteries.
And it's remarkable that the stent technology has really evolved to a tremendous degree, and we'll talk about that stent technology evolution when you're in the lab with us.
So I like it. It is June 23rd, right here on AZTV7 with Dr. Rizik and his team, and I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be good. And again, yes, they did let me come back in for another one, so I get to go back. I did a good job.
You were invaluable. You were invaluable.
Thank you. I really didn't learn.
You know what I was very impressed with? You know, when we were doing that, putting the clip in, you know, I had to focus because it was a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
And you took right over, man. You kept the discussion going. You and Dr. Shaw, you guys were great.
Well, and I could have got in there too if you need to take a bathroom break or anything.
Hey, you know, whatever. Whatever. See one, do one, teach one.
There it is. Thank you, Dr. Rizik. Remember, information's on AZTV.com about the procedure, and of course, you can go take a look at the last procedure that we did here on AZTV7.